Alright, so we're going to be doing a upgrade to my computer, my main computer. So for those who watch my live streams that I've been doing, probably wondering what is the actual machine that I stream off of. So we're going to be upgrading that to this PCIe Gen 5 power supply, also known as an ATX compatible power supply. And just to go over like what's actually in that system, I have said it before, but this does contain the new AMD 7950X. So the Ryzen 16 core with the X670E AORUS Master from Gigabyte. And it's currently using an HX1200. We'll show that off in a little bit, but that's already a pretty good power supply. We're going to be upgrading to this 1300 watt ATX3 power supply from MSI. So this is the Mag series. I'm also going to be throwing in another 2 terabyte Gen 3 SSD because these are on Black Friday sale at Micro Center for $79.99. If you look here, the original retail price is $200. 2 terabyte for $80 is a very good deal. Even though this is a budget SSD, it doesn't really have great speeds. You can see the speeds are pretty terrible. But I wanted a cheap 2 terabyte extra storage that's flash. I don't have to run like a SATA hard drive or anything, so we're gonna go with one of those. This is also more cost effective than going with the big 2.5 inch SSD, surprisingly enough. So can't really recommend this enough. If you live near a Micro Center, go ahead and get one of these. So I did pick up 2 of them. This one's probably gonna go on a laptop. There'll be a video in the future covering that, but for now, I'm gonna be adding one to my AMD computer. So you can see we have the Fractal Torrent. So this is the case, and I already undid the back, so I'm just gonna pick this up. And you can see there is the HX1200. This case is a top-mounted power supply. So there it is. Yeah, so this is a very good power supply. I've been using it for many years. Never had any problems with it. The reason why I got it back in the day was because when I had Vega 64 at the time, I was using one of these. So I was actually using a Prime Titanium. This is from Seasonic, 80 plus titanium, 1000 watt. I was using this, but this couldn't handle the transient loads. So while playing certain games, Vega 64 would cause the PC to just literally shut off because it would trip over current protection, OCP, off of the Seasonic unit. So ever since then, I've never bought Seasonic power supplies. So I switched over to Corsair, to the HX1200. I have 2 of these right now. One of them is the one that you guys just saw. The other one is in the Intel 13th gen system. So this one will now go into my test rig, the one that has the Intel Arc GPU. So it's not like I'm not going to use it anymore. I'm just going to repurpose it. So I want to show you inside here. You can see the mess of cables. You can see, let me put a light on there. So you can see in here the NVIDIA connector. See how it's already kind of like bending down? And there's not a whole lot I can do, and this is a pretty big case. So right now I have like these kind of just dangling from the connector. So that's not really good long term, but thankfully I've never had any problems with it. And I have been running one of these for a pretty long time now. Now granted, I do swap out my GPUs pretty often for content on the channel, so you guys may have noticed recently I was running the 6900 XT from AMD in here when I was doing a series on like streaming with AMD's encoder. But I've since put the NVIDIA card back in here just to see some comparisons with the 4080. For me, I don't need to upgrade to an NVIDIA GPU right now. I'm more interested in what AMD is going to offer with the 7000 series. But this is what we're going to address today, is basically simplifying this. But now granted, this is a very, very expensive fix. Buying, you know, a very high-end 1300 watt power supply just to do this. So do I recommend it? Probably not. It's not practical. If you can find the MPG 1000 watt MSI power supply, I'd probably get one of those instead. All right, well here is the primary reason why I'm doing this upgrade. You can see I'm using the NVIDIA adapter cable, and look at the monstrosity over here that it requires me to have here. See how this is all just kind of dangling down. There's no easy way to do this because of the way the NVIDIA cooler has a cable here. It would have been much easier if it was on the end, but they insisted on putting it there. And I didn't want to block the logo, so I couldn't just run it like up here. So I had to actually run it this way, which is not terrible, but you can see it's not great. Like, it does cause some pressure on this connector, which we want to try to avoid if at all possible. But because we're taking this apart, I don't need it anymore. So yeah, so there you guys go. That is the three-way splitter. So this is what comes with the RTX 4080. The 4090 comes with 4 of these, so it's even worse. But the thing is, this is actually a 3090 Ti, for those curious. So you can see the 3090 Ti, the adapter cable that comes with it lacks the sense pins, the 4 sense pins. So this is just a 12 pin. It's actually not even the official ATX 5 or PCIe 5 plug, because it lacks the sense wires, and NVIDIA is using a custom, like they have like a plastic molded bridge on these top 2. Similarly, if we look at the 3080 Ti's plug, and this is also the 3080's plug, so you can see here they bridge the 2 on the bottom where the clip is. Those are bridged. On the 3090 Ti, the top 2 are bridged. That way you cannot use this with a 3090 Ti. This will not fit in that plug because they have like a thing in there, or a guard in there, checking for the right connector type. So, however, we can avoid all of that by using the new 600 watt actual PCIe 5.0 plugs. This is the 12 plus the 4 sense wires. This, I can already tell, will work with the 3090 Ti, because the 3090 Ti has the 4 sense wires, just like the 4080 and the 4090. Now, what's interesting is the 3080 and the 3080 Ti, because those do not have the sense wires on the top where the connectors go. One other thing I wanted to mention, this is probably an important thing to talk about, is if you are changing power supplies, if you are doing what I'm doing, so I'm migrating from a Corsair power supply over to an MSI power supply, you need to make sure that when you take apart the old unit and you start unplugging things, you need to keep all the old cables with the old power supply. You do not want to mix and reuse cables from the old power supply with your new power supply. The plugs, some of them are physically different. So for example, if we look at the Corsair's PCIe cables, as you can see here, they have this black mylar, which there's something really thick in here. Those are actually capacitors. So there are capacitors in with like embedded in along these wire runs for the PCIe. So this is something that Corsair is doing. So you do not want to use these with the MSI power supply, because the MSI power supply, if we look at the cables that come with that unit, PCIe power cables on the MSI unit, as you can see here, do not feature capacitors. They're just straight run. They're straight run, which means the capacitors that they use are in the actual unit itself. That is a very, very important thing that I want to mention for people who are doing a power supply upgrade. Do not use your old cables with the new unit just because you think you can just, you know, disconnect all the cables up top here and then just take this out, leave everything here, put the new one in and plug everything back in. No, do not do that. You're asking for trouble. You could destroy hard drives. I've seen a hard drive fry from doing something like that. That's a big deal because that's data loss right there. So yeah, so public service announcement, do not mix and match cables between power supplies. Keep all the new ones together. So I'm not even going to put any of them out on the table. So these are just the adapters for the PCIe. But I'm not going to put any of the MSI ones out here on the table until I have collected all the Corsair ones, and I've put that one all the way into storage. So keep that in mind. Okay, I've gotten all the cables put back in the original Corsair bag. So it really does help to keep all the original packaging. But if you don't keep the box, at least keep the bag. Because like I said, you don't want your cables to get mixed up. So I'm going to be reusing this power supply with my test rig, so it's not like I'm getting rid of it or anything. So that's a 1200 watt unit. That's a very good unit still. So this is what we're left with. You can see in here, we no longer have power cables here or there. The motherboard is disconnected. The EPS is disconnected. All the SATA on the back is disconnected. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lift it up. I want to check. You guys, just bring you guys around to the back here. QVO, Samsung SATA. I have a Crucial MX500 SATA. So those are my SATA SSDs. And then we have a 8 terabyte Toshiba traditional drive. So I can put another one over here. But I really want to just fill up like I just want to go all in with like flash memory. So I'll probably get more of these. I'm waiting for like the 4 terabytes and the 8 terabytes of these, maybe 6 terabytes to come down in price before I get more SATA. So that's why what we are going to do, we are going to add this cheap, it's on Black Friday sale, 80 bucks for 2 terabytes. I mean, yeah, it's slow. That's not even like proper PCIe Gen 3 speed, but it's Gen 3, it's cheap. I just need 2 terabyte for, you know, like DaVinci Resolve and stuff, and maybe some single player Steam games or whatever. So can't really go wrong with that, you know. 2 terabytes, $79.99, I'll take it. In fact, I got 2 of them. So, all right, so we're gonna go ahead and install this. We're gonna install one of these. We'll just go with one for now. And then we will put all the new cables in, the new MSI unit. All right, how to use the quick disconnect button featured on the AORUS Master motherboard from Gigabyte. So this is the X670E. So you can see down here, if I zoom in, you can see there's a button down here. You're gonna press that. There you go. All right, so if there are any TIs out, there it is. The plate down here is blocked by this Thunderbolt add-in card, so I will have to take the Thunderbolt card out. I don't have to undo the cables. So we got cables on the Thunderbolt card, you just need to lift it up. You can see there's the GC Maple Ridge, it's Thunderbolt 4 on AMD. We're just gonna move it over here. It'll be fine like that for now, just let it dangle over there. That's the nice thing about having the large case. You're never really space constrained. Let's see, this is, okay, there we go. The heat sinks were stuck. So, all right, so we're gonna add the third M.2 right there in the middle. That's where this one's gonna go, 2 terabytes. So right now what I have is a, this is a Micro Center. This is an Inland Premium or Professional, I forget. It's whatever the one is. With, you can see it has the Ryzen controller on there. And then I have a Crucial P1 NVMe. So these are both Gen 3 SSDs. And we're adding another, now this is a very low-end Gen 3 SSD, so this heatsink is kind of overkill for them. But I just need cheap storage. I don't really need the performance. I will, at some point, probably try to get a Gen 5 SSD and put it where this massive heatsink is up here for my 4th M.2. So it'll just be literally like 3 Gen 3s and then 1 Gen 5, just to kind of show Gen 5 off. My PlayStation 5 has a Gen 4 SSD, so literally pretty much all of my SSDs have always been Gen 3. All right, so we want to add this. What you want to make sure first, though, you got to make sure you peel off the thermal pad cover. That plastic cover is an insulator, so you do not want the, and there's one on the bottom as well. All right, so those are off, ready to go. So we're just going to get the M.2 drive, and I really like the way they did this. So let me zoom in to show you guys. This is probably one of my favorite features of this motherboard. So literally it's completely screwless. You put that in there, and see how I've got it right there where it kind of lifts up. You just bam, clicks in, keyless or toolless. So then all I gotta do is put this back on. Alright, so I have that out. I want to just put this here, and then I'm going to put the MSI one right next to it so you guys get an idea of size difference. So there we go. That is the difference in how long my older Corsair power supply is versus the MSI. You can see that is about, what is that, 3 centimeters, probably an inch and a half, somewhere like that, something like that. You can see, okay, that's like almost 2 inches of height difference between the two of them. So I do personally think the Corsair one is better, because I do like the larger power supply, because you get better heat spread across the unit for heat dissipation, as opposed to, and this also has a very nice big grill to allow air to flow through. So I'm not too happy about how the MSI one does not have to turn off the zero fan mode, because this grill is kind of restrictive, and it being very compact, and the fact that it's going to be mounted up top, and all the hot air from the chassis. Now, granted, it's going to mostly flow this way, but because we have those down fans going up, there will be some air that goes this way. And when the fan runs, it's going to suck a lot of that hot air and push it out the back, which is going to sort of, it's going to result in higher operating temperatures for the PSUs, inductors, capacitors, the board components, the MOSFETs, etc., as opposed to if this were mounted down at the bottom of the case. So unfortunately, it's just the nature of running the fractal torrent. That's what we're going to have to deal with. So hopefully it's okay. The nice thing about it being short, though, is now you have more room up here for cable management. However, that being said, when I was running my Corsair, even though I had much less space, you can see I had about this much space here to manage the cables. I never had any problems with it. So okay, so now we plug in the interesting cable. So now we've got this special cable, the 600 watt on both ends. You got the sense pins. So that is going to go. Okay, so I guess the best that this can do is, no, it's not long enough to go that way. So I can see why people don't like this cable. Try not to bend it too much. All right, so that's in, but I can already tell that that's not going to fit with the case. So it's going to have to go down. It's going to have to bend somewhat laterally, which is what you don't want to do. So it's kind of annoying. This cable, I can already tell, like, a lot of people don't like this thing. Probably that's the best I can do. So let's take a look at that bend angle from a different angle. So I got it about there. So it's just under. I don't think the glass will be a problem. But if we look at it there, it looks like it's in all the way. All right, that looks like we're in good. So I'm gonna say that's okay. Now I'm not an expert in this, because this is the first power supply I've ever used that's got the full 16-pin connector. Before, I was using NVIDIA's adapter cable, which on the 3090 Ti, it doesn't actually have the sense pins. It's just a 12-pin without those 4 additional pins. So anyway, hopefully this doesn't burn down my computer, but I think we're going to be good. I think this is a lot safer than the actual adapter. So we'll see, hopefully at least. So there you guys go. That's going to be, we're going to go ahead and put all this stuff back together, and we're going to turn it on and see if everything works, and hopefully it doesn't explode. You also want to check and make sure that the connector on the power supply side is in good too, because I did notice that it was crooked a little bit. It was like a little bit going this way, so I kind of repositioned it. but it looks like it's in all the way, from what I can tell. Doesn't look like it's not connected, or yeah, it looks like it's connected good. Okay, so that should be it. So you guys can see, we basically got it down so that that's the only PCIe plug. Now, if I do want to add power from my Thunderbolt add-in card, I'll need to plug in one or two of these for the dual 6 pins that are on there. But for now, we'll just leave that off. I don't have any devices that need the power, so we're just going to get everything reconnected like this, and we'll go from there. All right, and the last thing I wanted to talk about was the power cables. So if you guys notice, the power cable on the right is the power supply that came with the MSI 1300 watt unit, the PCIE5 ATX 3 power supply, but the other one on the left is from a different power supply, and I wanted to show that on the cable they're actually different. So this one, so the MSI cable is a, I don't know if it shows up on the camera, looks like 14 AWG, or it says 3 by 2.08 millimeters squared, and whereas this one, this other cable, is 16 AWG. So this one's 14 AWG. So you want, this is the one that came with the unit. You want to make sure you use the one that comes with a power supply. Do not use like a monitor cable, or some other cable from like an 850 watt power supply. Don't be lazy. Don't leave this just because this is nicely in like a zip tie and stuff. It's nice. Don't just leave that just because you think you can just use your old run-of-the-mill power cable. No, you want to use this heavy-duty one. You can even tell that the plug is a different kind of shape here. So this one is the one we want, not this one. All right, so that is Power Safety 101. If you're going to be using a 450 watt TDP GPU, especially, and considering we're using a 16 core CPU, for DaVinci Resolve and that sort of thing, yeah, you definitely want to use the right stuff. Okay, moment of truth. Let's get this thing online. Lights are good. Postcode's going. This is a cold boot. AM5. Post. And there we go. We're in. And there we go. Into Windows. Good deal. Alright, one final thing is once you're into Windows, just boot in and make sure that everything looks like it's operating normally. You can see, so I have my new SSD. My new SSD that I installed is the one showing here as disk 4. The reason why I can tell that's my new one is because it doesn't have a letter. So if you notice, I have C, D, E, F, and G. Now we have this disk 4 that has no letter, so I'll have to initialize that in disk management and partition that as a new GPT disk. So I'll give it a name. I'll probably call it like DaVinci Resolve Scratch Drive, or like Game Drive or something for Steam or whatever. So anyway, that's what you're going to do once you install a new M.2 drive. Alright, and there you have it. That is how you upgrade your power supply to a new high-end wattage unit like this MSI Meg AI 1300P PCIe Gen 5. So again, you want to look for ATX 3.0. They may not say PCIe 5. As long as it says ATX 3.0, fully supported, it most likely has that cable. So that will allow you to not have to use one of these that ship with the the RTX 4080, or the 4-pin if you're talking about a 4090, or even this 3-pin that I'm using that goes with the 3080 or the 3090 Ti. So hope you guys found that video useful, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.